2019, Pennsylvania, USA.
This morning, Bucks County prosecutors are charging a mother and daughter with killing 5 of their family members.
Bucks County murders. In the quiet suburban borough of Morrisville in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, the ordinary facade of an apartment building masked one of the most disturbing family tragedies the county had ever seen. In late February 2019, 5 people, 3 of them children, lay dead inside a small unit at the Robert Morris Apartments on West Bridge Street. 2 survivors, a mother and her teenage daughter, would soon be charged with murder. What unfolded is a dark tale of mental illness, cult-like delusions, and an attempt to bring life to a suicide pact of sorts, where death seemed more certain than hope. On February 25, 2019, a routine welfare check turned into a nightmare. A caseworker from Children and Youth Services knocked on the door of apartment 5S at 200 West Bridge Street. No answer. Maintenance entered and found a scene of chaos. Furniture overturned, broken glass on the floor, and inside a cramped bedroom, 4 bodies clustered together. A 5th body lay hidden beneath another. The victims were identified as 25-year-old Ira Smith and 13-year-old Damon Decree Jr., children of Shayna Decree, 42-year-old Jamila Campbell, Shayna's sister, and Jamila's 9-year-old twin daughters, Imani and Erica Allen. The mother, Shayna, and daughter Dominique, then 19, were found in the apartment, disoriented, and taken to hospital. At first, both women denied involvement. Shayna claimed her sister's boyfriend and 2 unknown men had broken in, killed the family, and left her and Dominique alive. Dominique initially echoed that story, with visible injuries to her neck, repeating, "I want to die." But the story soon shifted. In an affidavit of probable cause, Shayna admitted, everyone in the apartment, including the children, wanted to die, had been talking about suicide. Dominique then gave investigators a chilling account. She described how Shayna killed one twin, the 13-year-old and the adult sister. The sister killed the other twin. Dominique strangled the adult sister. The physical evidence, asphyxiation in 4 deaths, 1 strangled, confirmed the brutality. What drove a mother and daughter to kill 5 relatives, including children? Investigators uncovered a dark psychological landscape. Both women were later diagnosed with severe mental illness. Shauna suffered from delusions that the world was ending and that demons inhabited her home. Dominique displayed symptoms of major depressive disorder, schizoid personality disorder, and PTSD since childhood. The affidavit suggests a murder-suicide pact. Shauna told police she believed the family wanted to die, possibly to escape suffering. Many aspects remain murky. Why this family? Why these victims? Prosecutors described it as a mystery. Investigators carefully reconstructed the scene. The apartment was in disarray. Overturned furniture, broken glass, visible signs of struggle. Autopsies revealed that at least 4 victims had been suffocated. 1, the eldest adult, died from strangulation. The pair's initial misdirection, blaming unknown male intruders, gave way to confessions. Investigators noted that Dominique had visible neck injuries and kept repeating suicidal statements. Over the course of 3 days, February 23rd to 25th, the killings are believed to have taken place. On February 26, 2019, the District Attorney's Office arraigned Shauna, 45, and Dominique, 19, on 5 first-degree murder counts and 1 conspiracy count each. A death penalty decision was considered, but later dropped as the women's mental health diagnoses were acknowledged. In September 2020, both pleaded guilty but mentally ill to first-degree murder. Each received 5 consecutive life sentences, avoiding the death penalty. At sentencing, Shauna said, "I'm so sorry for everything that happened, and I truly don't understand why it happened." This case sits at the intersection of family tragedy and cult-like thinking. The "everyone wanted to die" motif echoes suicide pacts or extremist ideation rather than typical homicide motives like money or rage. The apartment's condition, chaos, struggle, shared delusion, suggests the participants were both victim and perpetrator, blurring sharp lines. Mental illness played a central role. Delusions, depressive disorders, distorted beliefs. The fact that Shauna's sister and her twin children were included complicates motive. Victims and suspects were intertwined in family bonds, living under one roof, sharing the same distorted mindset. Outside the apartment complex, neighbors told reporters they had never seen anything like this. One remarked, "It's creepy. I've lived here 20 years, never seen anything like this before." The trauma reverberated through Morrisville and Bucks County. A mother and daughter who should have protected life were accused of taking it, including the lives of twin 9-year-old girls. Community leaders called it heartbreaking and one of the worst in county history. In the years since the sentencing, the case remains a grim reminder of what happens when despair and illness conspire. The 5 consecutive life sentences send a message. The justice system recognized the insanity, but held the suspects accountable. Yet the deeper question persists. How do we prevent a family from mutating into a death cult? The signs were there. Prior mental health treatment, a chaotic household, statements about wanting to die. Unfortunately, intervention came too late. The victims, a 25-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old son, a 42-year-old aunt, and 2 9-year-old twin girls, were all gone in a matter of days. The cost was incalculable. In the end, the Morrisville murders are not simply about murder. They're about despair, belief, family dynamics, and the darkest corner of the human mind. A mother and daughter, once nurturers, became orchestrators of death. 5 lives lost, many more forever changed, and a community left wrestling with the unanswerable question: why? This case stands as a stark reminder. When bloodlines become bloodstains, the ties that bind can also strangle. 2019, Idaho, Arizona, USA. Vallow Daybell Doomsday Murders. In the summer of 2019, 2 children, 16-year-old Tylee Ryan and 7-year-old Joshua J.J. Vallow, vanished. Their mother figure, Lori Vallow Daybell, and her new partner, Chad Daybell, should have been their protectors. Instead, their disappearance ignited one of the most bizarre murder cases in recent American history, marked by doomsday prophecies, claims of zombies, bizarre cult ideation, and brutal killings, all wrapped around insurance money and apocalyptic visions. Lori, originally from Arizona, had over the years espoused strange religious beliefs. That she belonged to the 144,000 chosen ones, that she could see evil spirits, and that her children, especially JJ and Tylee, had been possessed, turned into zombies. Chad, an author of apocalyptic novels and a self-described prophet, had his own strange worldview. The two joined forces, romantically and spiritually, and quickly became fixated on death, destruction, and vision-driven upheaval. In February 2019, Charles Vallow, Lori's 4th husband, filed for divorce, citing threats to his life. That Lori told him he was possessed by a dark spirit called Ned Schneider, and that she claimed she was a god assigned for Christ. Their motives? Investigators say the murders were committed to remove obstacles and allow Lori and Chad to marry, collect life insurance policies, survivor benefits, and step into a doomsday-driven agenda. Lori repeatedly called the children zombies, part of her bizarre religious lexicon, saying they were beyond saving. A close friend told investigators that the couple used a scoring system to determine who was good or evil, and that zombies were possessed people who had to be removed. In June 2020, the remains of JJ and Tylee were found buried on the grounds of Chad's property in rural eastern Idaho, 8 months after their disappearance. By that time, the investigation had spread across Idaho, Arizona, and Hawaii. In April 2023, a jury in Idaho found Lori guilty on all charges, including the murders of her 2 children and conspiracy to kill Tammy Daybell. On July 31, 2023, she was sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences without possibility of parole. The judge declared she had chosen the most evil and destructive path possible, plunging into a bizarre religious rabbit hole. In June 2024, Chad Daybell was found guilty of the murders of Tammy Daybell, Tylee, and JJ, and sentenced to death.
Lori Vallow appeared in an Idaho courtroom this morning. The so-called doomsday mother who is accused of murdering her 2 children is arguing that
An extremely rare capital punishment verdict in Idaho. Psychologically, this case reveals disturbing layers. Lori and Chad cultivated a shared delusion of apocalypse, saw themselves as chosen, believed the world was ending, and equated certain people, notably their own children, as evil or obstructive. Mental health experts said Lori's behavior included delusions and grandiose religious fantasy. Chad appeared influenced by her notions and his own writings. They created a conspiracy around zombies and spiritual warfare, a warped worldview used to justify murder. The killings became methodical. Remove the children, remove the rival wife, liquidate the husband or kill the husband, collect benefits, marry, ascend. The plan spanned 2 states, involved multiple conspirators, including Lori's brother, and used manipulation, deceit, and fear. The insurance angle was not incidental. Charles Vallow had changed his life insurance beneficiary away from Lori shortly before his death. He sensed danger. For Tammy, the funeral was fast-tracked, questions ignored, autopsy delayed. Evidence of financial motive stacked up. Lori's own statements in court underscore the twisted reality. She claimed her children and Tammy were all happy and extremely busy in heaven, said she had been speaking with Jesus, and insisted nobody in the case was murdered. Accidental deaths happen. Suicides happen. The juxtaposition of this denial with gruesome evidence triggered shock among jurors and community members alike. The context of a self-styled cult is vital. Lori and Chad held prayer meetings, saw zombies among everyday people, believed they received revelation from portals and other realms. Assistant prosecutors described a scoring system for good versus evil, a hierarchy of the elect, and a doomsday belief married to murder and greed. At the same time, community members in Idaho and Arizona were stunned. A suburban family, a mother and her new husband, 2 missing kids. What began as odd went horrific. As one juror said, A parent killing their own children is the most shocking thing I can imagine. In court, the evidence included phone calls, text messages, forensic excavation of the burial site.
Several charges, including first-degree murder, and if convicted, would face the death penalty. On the first motion,
Insurance records, vehicle registrations, and witness testimony about Lori's prophecies. In one recorded jail call, Lori asked Chad, "What? Are they in the house?" as police searched for the kids. Reddit, sorting out fact from fantasy, the prosecution painted a deliberate series of events, each piece building the case. Children gone, wife dead, husband dead, plan executed. At sentencing, the gravity of the deaths weighed heavy. The victims: Tylee Ryan, a bright teenager; J.J. Vallow, a young boy; Tammy Daybell, a 49-year-old woman with decades of marriage; Charles Vallow, a loving father who changed his insurance beneficiary days before his death. Survivors, including JJ's grandmother, Kay Woodcock, and Chad's children, described the trauma. The judge noted the photos of the children, the evidence pile of the doomsday scheme, and said he would never remove the images of the slain children from his head. Looking back, this case is more than murder. It is a warped convergence of apocalyptic faith, family betrayal, psychological breakdown, and cold calculation. Lori and Chad turned their household into a death cult, disguising murder as spiritual warfare and insurance strategy. They killed their way to a prophesied future, built on lies, grave diggings, and denial. In the end, they paid the price. Lori in a life sentence without parole, Chad facing death by the state. 1990, California, USA. Lyle Menendez, Eric Menendez. It was August 20th, 1989, when Beverly Hills police received a frantic 911 call. Two young men, hysterical and sobbing, claimed their parents had been shot to death in their mansion on Elm Drive. Those men were Lyle and Eric Menendez, handsome, privileged sons of entertainment executive Jose Menendez and his wife, Kitty. What at first appeared to be a brutal home invasion would soon unravel into one of the most shocking and psychologically complex family murder cases in American history. Jose Menendez was the archetype of the American success story. A Cuban immigrant who climbed his way into Hollywood's upper circle, eventually becoming an executive at Live Entertainment. He was known as controlling, hyper-driven, and obsessed with image. Kitty, once a beauty queen, had become withdrawn and dependent on tranquilizers, trapped in a cold marriage. To outsiders, the family seemed perfect: wealth, opportunity, and the image of the American dream. But beneath that gleaming surface, something was rotting. Lyle and Eric, 21 and 18 at the time of the murders, lived in the shadow of their father's expectations. Lyle was confident, aggressive, and entitled. Eric, more fragile, a promising tennis player but deeply insecure. Both enjoyed expensive cars, luxury clothes, and the kind of freedom that comes with money, and their father's constant reminders that they were still not good enough. According to later testimony, the brothers' relationship with their parents was steeped in fear, control, and, as they later claimed, years of sexual abuse. On that fateful night, the brothers armed themselves with 12-gauge shotguns and entered the family den. Jose Menendez was watching television. Kitty was dozing on the couch. Within seconds, The house erupted in gunfire. Jose was hit in the back of the head at close range, killed instantly. Kitty tried to run but slipped on the polished floor. The brothers reloaded and continued firing, shooting her multiple times. The brutality of the act was staggering. She was almost unrecognizable. Minutes later, Lyle and Eric drove off, disposing of the shotguns in Mulholland Drive canyons, and returned home to stage a cover story. When police arrived, the scene looked like a robbery gone wrong. Drawers were pulled out, valuables left untouched. The brothers played their parts convincingly, sobbing outside the mansion, telling detectives they'd gone to the movies and returned to find their parents dead. For months, the facade held. With no immediate suspects, the brothers inherited their parents' estate, an estimated $14 million. Instead of grief, what followed was a spending spree. Lyle bought a $60,000 Porsche and invested in restaurants. Eric hired a personal tennis coach, bought Rolex watches, and spent lavishly on travel. They moved into luxury condos, dined in Beverly Hills' best restaurants, and told friends they were finally free. But guilt has a way of bleeding through privilege. Eric began confiding in his psychologist, Dr. Jerome Oziel, revealing the truth about the murders. Oziel, fearing for his safety, recorded the confessions, an act that would later ignite ethical debates about patient confidentiality. When Oziel's mistress exposed the tapes to police, the Menendez brothers' perfect world crumbled. In March 1990, both were arrested. The trial that followed became a media sensation, one of the first major televised court cases in U.S. history. America was captivated. Two rich, handsome boys accused of slaughtering their parents. The defense claimed years of psychological and sexual abuse drove the brothers to kill in terror, not greed. The prosecution argued it was cold-blooded murder, motivated by inheritance and resentment. The courtroom became theater. The brothers cried openly, describing horrific acts allegedly committed by their father and the emotional neglect of their mother. The jury was visibly shaken, yet doubts lingered. Were these traumatized sons seeking justice, or manipulative killers rewriting their past? After two lengthy trials and hung juries, the second in 1996 brought a verdict. Both Lyle and Eric were found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They were sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. For many, justice had been served. For others, it felt incomplete, a moral puzzle without a clear edge. Psychologists later dissected the Menendez case as a rare intersection of privilege, trauma, and pathology. If the brothers' claims of abuse were true, the murders were an eruption of years of suppressed rage and terror. If not, they were driven by greed, a narcissistic rebellion against parental control. Most likely, the truth lay somewhere between, a toxic mix of domination, psychological damage, and entitlement born from wealth without empathy. Behind bars, both brothers have since expressed remorse and sought redemption. They were separated for decades in different prisons, communicating only by letters until 2018, when they were reunited at the same correctional facility. Their reunion, after nearly 22 years apart, was emotional, hugging and weeping as if frozen in time since that night in 1989. Today, The Menendez murders endure as a haunting symbol of the dark side of family and privilege. A tragedy where love, fear, and greed intertwined until they became indistinguishable. The Beverly Hills mansion is long sold. The tapes are sealed. But the echoes of shotgun blasts still hang in America's collective memory. Perhaps the most disturbing element of the story isn't the crime itself, but how normal the brothers once seemed. Two well-educated young men with every opportunity. What kind of pressure, real or imagined, drives children to turn their guns on the very people who gave them life? Was it a cry for freedom, or a grotesque pursuit of control? In the years since, the case has inspired books, documentaries, and dramatizations. From Law and Order to The Menendez Murders, Eric and Lyle take the stand. Each retelling circles the same question. Were the Menendez brothers victims or villains? The answer depends on how you define evil. Some see it as the absence of empathy, others as the product of unbearable suffering. In the end, the Menendez story is less about two killers and more about what happens when the facade of a perfect family cracks, and what lies beneath is darker than anyone wants to believe. The mansion, once filled with luxury, has faded into silence. But the Menendez name remains etched into American crime lore. A chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous monsters aren't strangers in the night. They're sitting across the dinner table. 2007-2013, Gang of Amazons, Russia. From the summer of 2007 until September 2013, a comfortable-looking family from the village of Divnoye in the Stavropol Krai quietly carried out a reign of terror. Dozens of killings, armed robberies, killings of police officers, ambushes on drivers and couples, all under the leadership of a mother, her husband, and their young daughters. The matriarch was Inessa Tarverdieva, a former nursery school teacher turned gang leader. Her partner, common-law husband, was Roman Podkapayev, a trained dentist. Their eldest daughter, Victoria Tarverdieva, joined the enterprise. And even the youngest, a teenager named Anastasia Tarverdieva, was implicated. Together, aided by relatives including a traffic police officer, they turned the southern Russian countryside into their playground of violence. The first threads of suspicion began in 2008 and 2009. The gang would target families driving on the federal highway M4, isolated homes at night, couples returning from holidays. One of the most notorious cases, on 8 July 2009, they murdered Lieutenant Colonel Dmitry Chudakov, his wife and 7-year-old son, then stabbed his 11-year-old daughter 37 times. Another attack in 2010 targeted 2 teenage girls, reportedly including Inessa's goddaughter, who were tortured, their eyes gouged out, before being murdered. Over the years, the gang stole cars, guns, jewelry, and used stolen weapons in later killings. They left victims alive to spread fear. They targeted police, drivers, impoverished rural residents. According to investigators, they committed at least 10 confirmed murders, though sensational media reports claimed up to 30. Psychology of this case is layered and disturbing. Inessa, once a mild-mannered teacher, revealed during interrogation that she hated the police and considered herself a gangster by nature. Her relationship with Podkapayev appears to have been built on dominance and control. He may have been involved in the death of Inessa's first husband, according to suspicion. Victoria, the eldest daughter, acted with an unnatural composure for a killer. One witness described the family as treating murders like a day at the office. In the case of the teenage daughter Anastasia, one wonders how a child could be drawn into gore and violence, an indication of the twisted family dynamics at play. The gang's aide, traffic police officer Sergei Sinelnik, provided insider information, protected their operations, and gave them a technical edge. Their operational pattern fused stealth and audacity. They used camping trips as cover, hid weapons in remote campsites, and used stolen police gear to evade detection. In one dramatic incident on 8 September 2013, the gang opened fire on police officers during a stop, killing Podkapayev and wounding Sinelnik. It was the gang's downfall. Investigators found a cache of 20 firearms, silencers, grenades, and stolen goods at the campsite where Inessa, Victoria, and Anastasia were arrested. Investigative journalists questioned some aspects. There are claims that authorities may have overcharged the gang with unproven murders. For example, the case of the Chudakov family murder remains contested by the victims' relatives. But the core facts remain. A family gang led by a mother committed multiple murders and robberies over 6 years, terrifying rural Russia. In February 2017, the first trial resulted in convictions. Inessa received 21-year sentence, Victoria 16 years, Anastasia Sinelnik 19 years, Sergei Sinelnik 20 years. Later, in a second case in 2023, the Rostov court resentenced Inessa and Victoria to 25 years each, Anastasia Sinelnik to 24 years, and Sergei Sinelnik to 25 years in a strict regime colony. One co-accused received life. Roman Podkapayev died during the shootout with police in 2013, so he never stood trial. What makes this case so compelling is its breach of all expectations. A family unit, mother, father figure, daughters, committing serial violence. It penetrates the idea that monsters lurk on the fringes. Here, they lived in a tidy house in a peaceful village, drove normal cars, and sent children to school. The gang exploited geography, too. Rural roads in the North Caucasus Federal District, where police presence was light and terrain forgiving. They struck at night, targeted officers and innocents, and built a fear network. Psychologists analyzing the case point to several themes. The role of familial hierarchy, the toxic patriarchal structure turned lethal, the indoctrination of children into violence, and the charisma of a female leader in a crime culture usually dominated by men. Inessa insisted she felt justified. She once said she killed police officers out of personal hatred and regretted only that they could not kill more. Victoria, meanwhile, admitted participation and betrayed no deep remorse in initial statements, a chilling sign of early psychopathy or emotional detachment. The role of the youngest daughter, barely a teenager, raises troubling questions. What fear, what obedience, what brainwashing leads a teenager to join murder? From a justice perspective, the sentences reflect both the scale of the crimes and legal constraints. Russia's maximum for women in general regime colonies is around 25 years, which limited the legal system's ability to penalize the female members to a degree many observers find insufficient. The arrest of Podkapayev in the fatal 2013 gunfight preceded final convictions by years, during which the gang had already caused dozens of victims. The realization that a getaway could be so prolonged galvanized Russian investigative authorities to intensify their pursuit of such organized crime groups. Culturally and criminologically, the Gang of Amazons has become a case study in Russia's modern organized crime. Not mafia-style gangs with known territory and extortion, but a nomadic, mobile, family-run killing machine exploiting rural roads, vulnerable civilian and police targets, and firearms trafficked from post-Soviet arsenals. It underscores how organized crime can masquerade as normality. A suburban home, a mother who once taught preschool, daughters who attended school, until the violence erupts. By 2013, the saga ended. A shootout, stolen weapons, incriminating caches, and then arrests. Communities across Stavropol and Rostov would never forget the fear of nighttime drives, the uncertainty of remote roads. The name Amazon Gang, derived from a knife found near a murder scene, though that link remains contested, became shorthand for a family's descent into brutality. In the end, the story of the Gang of Amazons is more than a crime spree. It's a portrait of how family allegiance can warp into collective psychopathy, how normal domestic life can mask deep malice, and how the boundaries of mother, daughter, wife, and killer can be erased. It challenges us to ask, when the gatekeepers of childhood, the parent, the teacher, become perpetrators of horror, where then is innocence? And if an entire family chooses violence as routine, what safeguards were absent in the society, the sphere, the human psyche? The gang's legacy remains a warning. Monsters may sit at your dinner table, and sometimes ordinary families hold very extraordinary darkness. 6. Texas, USA. Towheed family murder-suicide. In the suburban calm of Allen, Texas, on April 5, 2021, the facade of normal family life was shattered by one of the most haunting tragedies in recent memory. A carefully calculated pact, a family destroyed, and a community left grappling with unfathomable loss. Early that morning, officers conducting a welfare check found 6 bodies inside a quiet home on Pine Bluff Drive. A grandmother, parents, a sister, and 2 brothers, all dead. The victims were identified as 77-year-old Altafun Nessa, visiting from Bangladesh, 54-year-old Tawhidul Islam, 56-year-old Iren Islam, 19-year-old Farbin Tawhid, 19-year-old Farhan Tawhid, and 21-year-old Tanvir Tawhid. According to police, brothers Farhan and Tanvir had entered into a grim agreement to kill their family members and then themselves. It appears that the 2 brothers had entered into an agreement, said Sergeant John Felty of the Allen Police Department. What makes this catastrophe so chilling is its premeditation. Farhan, just 19, posted a lengthy message on Instagram earlier that week. "Hey everyone, I killed myself and my family," he wrote, offering a window into the dark calculus that led to the loss of 6 lives. He claimed in his note that he and his brother weighed the pros and cons of existence and concluded that their family would be better off dead than left behind. In one passage, he wrote about becoming miserable if only the brothers ended their lives. Only months earlier, the Tawhid family appeared outwardly normal. The parents, immigrants from Bangladesh, were described by neighbors as warm, inviting, and deeply proud of their children. They treated everyone like they were their own kids, a classmate of Farbin's recalled. Farbin, a recent high school graduate, had secured a scholarship to New York University. Tanvir was 21. Farhan was enrolled at the University of Texas before withdrawing. Yet behind this membrane of success and stability lurked profound despair. Farhan documented years of depression, self-harm attempts, and a struggle with identity and belonging. He described himself as a programming god in his note, rejected by a world he believed had already rejected him. His brother, Tanvir, appears to have shared his trajectory of disillusionment and alienation. The brothers blamed their sadder state not just on psychological illness, but on familial and cultural pressure, academic expectation, and a relentless quest for perfection in a world where they felt invisible. The psychology of the crime echoes what experts call family annihilation, where one or more family members kill their entire kin group and themselves. The motives from the note suggest a convergence of depression, resentment, entitlement, and the belief that violent death could somehow spare their loved ones the pain of living. Witnesses described the family's home as one where no police calls had been made, no obvious conflicts external. The motive was not outward profit or revenge, but inward collapse. In the aftermath of the shootings, investigators found no signs of forced entry or struggle, implying that the brothers had staged the killings with preparation, weapons legally purchased, and the element of shock intact. With no crime trial to follow, as both Tanvir and Farhan died by suicide, the case transitioned from prosecution to pathology, its true depths never fully explored in court. What remained were forensic reports, social media timelines, and a grieving community. For the Bangladeshi American community in North Texas, the event was seismic. The family had lived in Allen for 7 or 8 years, previously from New York. Their deaths defied the immigrant success narrative and exposed the hidden fragility of mental health within high-pressure cultural settings. Neighbors described days of shock, tears, and disbelief. "We've never seen anything like this," said one longtime resident. In terms of legal consequence, there is no traditional verdict or sentence. The killers took themselves. What justice there is lies in the societal introspection the case demands, the recognition of mental illness, the need for accessible care, the cultural stigma surrounding depression in immigrant families, the warning signs of catastrophic ideation. Farhan's social media post and his twin sister's scholarship win sit side by side as contradictory symbols of potential and devastation. What still chills is the quote from one brother, "If I'm going to die, I might as well get some attention." His words hint at a drive not only to annihilate his family, but to leave a mark, a narrative of destruction that transcends his own despair. The plan wasn't random, it was crafted. The victims weren't targets, they were consequences of a suicidal pact that saw family as extension of self, not of life. More than one expert emphasizes the role of perception. The brothers viewed their family not as sanctuaries, but as burdens. The older brother, a computer science student, told friends he believed he had reached his peak and was descending, so better to end than to fail. They were smart, well-educated, typical in every outward way, which makes the outcome all the more terrifying. As Reddit commenters noted, entitlement, rage, and narcissism fuel family annihilators. They don't see others as anything but props in their life. Reddit. The massacre also underscores the lethal power of online manifestation. The younger brother's public suicide letter, posted hours before the deaths, gave both a manifesto and a reflection of his collapsed psyche. It echoes a pattern seen in other mass violent cases where public self-expression, the broadcast of despair, becomes prelude to mass death. Today, the Pine Bluff Drive house stands quiet. The graves hold Altafan, Iren, Tauhidul, Farbin, Farhan, and Tanvir. Their names, printed in news tickers, sit nestled within tragedies that communities struggle to understand. No trial, no perpetrator to punish, just 6 lives ended and countless questions. What can be learned then? The primary lesson is not in the sensationalism of the crime, but in the quiet accumulation of risk. A brilliant young man hospitalized for depression, a family striving for excellence, a culture that equates success with survival, and in the end, a decision to kill meant to save. For scholars, the case becomes a study in how societal expectations, mental illness, sibling bonds, and suicide pacts can converge into annihilation. The legacy is chilling. At the heart of this family was love, ambition, hope. Yet that love was inverted into obligation. That ambition collapsed into despair. That hope was replaced with premeditated tragedy. The Tauhid murders don't teach justice. They teach warning. When 2 brothers see death as the only escape for themselves and their family, the fault lies not just in the members of that home, but in the systems, cultures, and silences that allowed it to remain hidden. In the end, there are no verdicts, no sentences, no restitution, only an echoing question. How did a house full of promise turn into a murder-suicide pact? The answer is messy, painful, incomplete. But one thing stands clear. The darkest stories are not always about evil strangers. They're about the quiet unraveling of the people we trusted to protect us. 2016, Ohio, USA. Pike County shootings. In the early morning light of April 22, 2016, a quiet, rural stretch of Piketon, Ohio, and nearby homes on Union Hill Road in Pike County, Ohio, revealed a nightmare that would become one of the most chilling murder cases in modern Ohio history. 8 members of the Roden family, 6 adults and a 16-year-old boy among them, were found shot, execution-style, across 4 separate residences, 3 mobile homes and a camper. The youngest victims of the massacre were siblings and a fiancé. The killers left 3 infants and a toddler alive, found among the devastation. From day one, investigators realized this was no random act of violence. The bodies in trailers, the absence of forced entry, the silence of survivors, all pointed to a planned, cold-blooded massacre. Prosecutors later concluded that the motive centered around a custody dispute. One member of the Roden family had refused to relinquish a child to a rival clan, the Wagner family, and the result was horrifying. According to legal filings, the Wagner side, a tightly knit network of homeschooling, shared firearms, and fundamentalist isolation, perceived the child as their property. When Hannah Roden, 19 at the time, asserted she would never sign the custody papers, investigators say the Wagners voted to kill. Consider the victim list. 40-year-old Christopher Roden Sr., his ex-wife Dana Lynn, 37, the 2 adult sons Clarence Frankie, 20, and Kenneth, 44, cousin Gary, 38, Frankie's fiancée Hannah Hazel Gilly, 20, 19-year-old Hannah Mae Roden, and 16-year-old Christopher Jr. Each was found slain by gunshot, many in the head, in homes that showed signs of deliberate staging, drawers pulled, valuables left untouched. Multiple residences hit almost simultaneously. The youngest children, 4-day-old, 6-month-old, 3-year-old, were found alive. Their survival deepened the horror and raised unasked questions. Why spare them? The investigation became massive, labeled the largest criminal probe in Ohio's Bureau of Criminal Investigation history. The case drew in federal agents, video labs, ballistics, and forensics teams. Over 2 years passed with no arrests. Then, in November 2018, 4 members of the Wagner family, Edward Jake Wagner, his mother Angela, his father George Billy Wagner III, and his brother George IV, were indicted on capital murder and related charges. In April 2021, Jake Wagner pleaded guilty to aggravated murder of the 8 victims, admitting he shot 5 of them as part of a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. His mother, Angela, soon followed, with a guilty plea to conspiracy and evidence tampering. George IV was found guilty in 2022 of all 22 counts, including 8 counts of aggravated murder, and was sentenced to 8 consecutive life sentences, plus 121 years. Billy Wagner remains charged and continually seeks new trials and appeals. Psychologically, the case stands out for its cocktail of entitlement, family loyalty taken to lethal extremes, and perceived betrayal and dominance. The Wagners appear to have operated like a criminal enterprise. Votes taken to kill, silencer parts ordered, trucks bought, bullet casings screened with brass catcher gear. They didn't just kill, they prepped, they surveilled, they mounted a strike as though it were war, not homicide. One prosecutor later called it very much a family affair, all for one and one for all. Behind the violence lay a disturbingly familiar conflict: custody, control, humiliation. Hannah Roden had refused to give custody of the child she bore with Jake Wagner, herself a teenager when the child was born. Her words, "They will have to kill me first," echoed in court as chilling prophecy. The alleged retaliation was not spontaneous. It was preconsidered, logged, and executed in the night. Investigators found homemade silencer components, surveillance logs, smuggled ammunition. They believed the Wagners fabricated the crime scenes to point toward narcotics or drug cartel activity, in an attempt to misdirect. To the families of the Rodens, the event remains an ongoing torment. The coldness of entering their sleeping homes, the precision of the gunfire. Cold, cold, cold blood, the Ohio Attorney General said. Planned, prepared. For the Wagners, the verdicts are severe and unequivocal. Multiple life sentences with no chance for parole. For Billy Wagner, the trial limbo continues. For the community in Pike County, one quiet night turned into an enduring scar. This case also speaks to how violence breeds in the margins of social invisibility. Modern gun parts, homeschooling isolation, ideological separation from society, a sense of being above the law. Add to that the dark undertones of fear, propitiation, vendetta. And the result? 8 lives extinguished in homes that once held laughter. The survivors, infants and toddlers, became silent witnesses to brutality that defied their age. In 2024, on the 8th anniversary of the massacre, local reports reminded residents of that unfathomable morning when neighbor Bobby Joe Manley discovered the bodies after making a routine check on a pet sitter job. She walked into an unreal scene. 2 bodies, then 3 bodies in another trailer. and later, a call to a camper site. The fragmentation of the scene, from trailer to camper, was as fracturing as the family bonds it destroyed. For a true crime audience, the Pike County Massacre carries gripping lessons. The danger of hidden disputes escalating, the lethal potential of family-based revenge, and the terrifying implications when an entire family network aligns around violence rather than justice. Motive matters, but the execution, the obsession, the cruelty, these matter more. It becomes about identity, codes, loyalty, prestige, and when one child's refusal triggers 8 deaths. When the final gavel fell, it was as if the state declared unequivocally, kinship doesn't excuse murder, family bonds don't justify erasure. The sentences mean the killers will never walk free. But they won't bring back the Rodins. And for the parents, the siblings, the community, closure is complicity's shadow. In the end, the night of April 21st, 22 wasn't just a massacre. It was a reckoning. When custody turned into carnage, when teens became targets, when family led the assault. The stories of those 8 victims are inscribed in the courthouse records, in the rural roads of Pike County, and in the haunting reminder. Sometimes our greatest threats come not from strangers, but from the people we are most bound to. 2021, Mississippi, USA. In late 2020, the Bryans were on the verge of inheriting substantial funds. Court documents reveal that the siblings were listed as beneficiaries on a family trust, worth approximately $6 million, following the death of a relative. And they stood to gain further life insurance proceeds upon their stepfather's death. The scheme they hatched was cold, calculated, and backed by recorded evidence. In December 2020, a confidential informant met with Regan at her home in Pearl, Mississippi. During that meeting, Regan claimed that her stepfather had molested her in the past and that she wanted him dead. She asked the informant if he could carry it out, and when he said he could, she reportedly said she would take care of him for the rest of his life if he killed the stepfather. Over the following months, the informant continued to communicate with Regan and also met with Joshua. During recorded conversations, the siblings discussed how to hire a hitman, how to pay him, and how to get away with the murder. One audio clip captured Joshua giving a green light to the undercover informant, telling him to do what he sees fit regarding the execution of the murder. The motive was laid bare: eliminate the stepfather, thereby redirecting or accelerating the flow of millions in trust and insurance money into the siblings' hands. They specifically discussed bleed that mother effer dry in relation to his estate. What makes this case particularly disturbing is the convergence of familial betrayal, emotional trauma, entitlement, and financial greed. On one hand, Regan claimed a history of abuse by her stepfather, which added a psychological layer of revenge or redress. On the other, both siblings appear to have viewed him as a barrier to their wealth. The trust, the insurance, these weren't incidental. They were the impetus, and they used their sibling bond to coordinate the plan. Investigators from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, ATF, and U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of Mississippi quietly built their case for months. By January 2021, they had enough evidence to make the arrests. Both siblings were taken into custody in Clinton, Mississippi. At trial, Joshua faced the full weight of the charges: murder for hire, solicitation of a crime of violence, and conspiracy to commit murder for hire. Regan, meanwhile, pled guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder for hire. On December 15, 2023, Joshua was found guilty by a federal jury. Then, on November 26, 2024, sentencing was handed down. Regan received 65 months, approximate 5 years, 5 months, in prison. Joshua was sentenced to 120 months, 10 years, in federal prison. The court clearly branded the siblings' plan as an act of violence driven by greed disguised as revenge.